This is going to be a great alternative, and it's going to be much healthier because it's all real ingredients, nothing processed about it. All you're using is egg yolks and cheese. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in and welcome back to another episode of Carnivore Kitchen. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make the best steak sauce slash cheese dip that you've ever tried in your life. But before I start, if you enjoy these types of videos and would like to see more recipe videos, then be sure to smash that like button so I know to make more of these recipe videos in the future. And if you're either new to the channel or haven't subscribed yet, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell, as I will be uploading new videos every single day. Now onto the recipe. What exactly are we going to need to make this cheese dip? Well, we are going to need 2 bowls, one to put the egg yolks in and one to put in the egg whites. We are also going to need a fork to mix everything together. You're going to need a spoon for the cheese. You want some Himalayan sea salt. If you don't have Himalayan sea salt, you can just use regular salt. Me personally, I like to use pink Himalayan sea salt because it does have all of its minerals intact. When you use salt, if you're using regular bleached white table salt, it's been stripped of all its companion elements and all it has is sodium and chloride. Whereas things like Himalayan and Celtic sea salt, if it still has its color, that means it hasn't been bleached and it still has all of its mineral content intact. So it's going to be preferable if you do want to salt your food. And this is the salt that I like to use. Next, we need eggs. I have 3 eggs for this. Depending on how much of the cheese dip you want to make, you could use more or less. I find that 3 is a good amount, especially since I'm going to be using this on my steak. And the last 2 things that we are going to need, some Pecorino Romano cheese. If you don't have Pecorino Romano cheese, it's basically sheep cheese that is the equivalent to Parmesan cheese. So if you don't have Pecorino Romano, you can use sheep cheese instead. It's going to be very similar. The only difference is the Pecorino Romano is a little bit more on the salty side, and one of the reasons why I like it is I tend to do better on sheep, goats, and water buffalo dairy as opposed to cow's milk. Cow's milk, I tend to not do well with it. It'll upset my stomach, and I do have issues with GI distress. So that's why I like to use the sheep cheese instead, just because for me personally, I tolerate it much better, and I'm allowed to consume it without having to go to the washroom right after. Next, we need some powdered blue cheese. The powdered blue cheese is going to add a really nice flavor, and when you put it with meat, it actually makes it really tender. So that's pretty much all the ingredients that we need. Now on to the recipe. Last week I showed you guys how to make my favorite steak and eggs recipe, and in that recipe I made this cheese dip, and I thought, you know what? This cheese dip is so good that it deserves its own recipe video, and a lot of people really like this as well. So I figured, why not make another video dedicated just to this cheese dip for you guys? And right now that's exactly what we're going to do. So the first step, we are going to take our eggs and we want to separate the yolks from the whites. One of the reasons why we are going to separate the yolks from the whites is because me personally, I'm not a fan of cooked egg yolks. I find that when you cook the egg yolks, they're really chalky in terms of their taste, and the egg whites are the opposite. The egg whites, I'm not a fan of raw egg whites, but I am a fan of cooked egg whites. So for this one over here, what we're going to do is just separate the yolks from the whites, and we're going to set aside the whites for later. And I'm going to be using the egg whites on my steak because I'm going to be having that again today. For you guys, if you're not making this for a steak, let's say you're just making a regular cheese dip that you can use for whatever else you are going to be consuming, then what you can do is just refrigerate your egg whites, use them at a later date. Or what you can do is just make some scrambled egg whites and put them on the side. It's going to be up to you though exactly what you want to do. Me personally, I'm going to be making myself a nice top sirloin steak, so I will be putting this on top of my steak just like I did with the recipe that I showed you guys last week. But again, if you're not having steak and eggs, if you want to just use it as a dipping sauce, then you can dip some vegetables in there if you're not carnivore. If you are carnivore, you can take your pork rinds and dip the pork rinds in here. There's really no limit to what exactly you can do with this. Alright, there we go. Now that we have our egg whites and egg yolks separated, the next step is going to be to add some salt to the egg yolks. For the egg yolks, typically what I like to do whenever I am making this particular dish is, for every egg yolk that is in the bowl, I like to add 3 shakes of the salt shaker. This one over here, it is not already ground up. This one you have to grind it yourself, and that's just the way that I like it. I prefer it a little bit more on the coarse side. If you prefer it more on the fine side, then you can get the finely ground salt, the one that's already ground, and then just use that. But for me, I really like it a little bit more on the coarse side. So I'm gonna put 3 in each bowl. I have 3 turns in the egg whites, 3 turns in the egg yolks. Next, what I want to do is take the Pecorino Romano cheese, and I'm going to put roughly 1 to 2 tablespoons in here. The more Pecorino Romano and blue cheese that you put, the thicker it's going to be, the less, the more watery. So if you prefer it more on the thick side, then you can take a nice heaping teaspoon of each of the cheeses, put it in, and then that will make it come out really thick. Now that we have all the ingredients in here, all we have to do is just stir it up until it's well combined. Not gonna take too long, this part is pretty simple. And if you saw the video that I made last week with regard to the steak sauce, steak and eggs, then you know that by the time you finish stirring this, it should be thick enough that you can turn this bowl upside down and it should not leave the bowl. If it leaves the bowl, that means that you did not stir it enough or you didn't put enough cheese. Unless you prefer it on the watery side. If you prefer it a little bit more watery and not so thick, then it definitely should not stick to the bowl because that's going to be too thick. For me personally though, I like it more on the thick side. So that's why I put a little bit more cheese. This one over here, the Pecorino Romano, there was probably a couple teaspoons in there because I did put a little bit more than usual because I'm making it a little bit more thick this time. But it's going to come down to personal preference. If you prefer it on the watery side, just put less cheese. If you prefer it thicker, add a little bit more. There's really no rules. As long as you enjoy it, that's all that matters. Alright, so it looks like it's just about ready. And this is what it looks like once it is finished. And now it's time to do the test. So, did I put enough cheese? Well, look at that. It is staying in there. Nothing's coming out. This thing could just stay in here all day. I could talk to you guys for another 10 minutes. This stuff is gonna go nowhere. Except for in my belly in a few minutes right after I make that steak. Next thing I'm gonna do is make my steak, but I'm not gonna be doing that for you guys because I already made the steak recipe last week. If you guys wanna watch that video, you can go ahead and check it out from last week's Carnivore Kitchen. What I am going to do is sample this dip with some pork rinds because I've never tried sampling with pork rinds, so I'm gonna do something new for you guys that I've never tried. Let's see how it comes out. Alright, so now I'm back with my pork rinds. Not gonna bother using that, so let's just wipe off whatever is left on the fork. We can get a little bit more, get a good amount of cheese right on that pork rind. Let's see how it tastes. Wow, you know what? That was absolutely delicious. I prefer it this way. A little bit more cheese. I put a little bit more than usual, and wow, is it amazing. Depending on how you like it, if you prefer more on the cheesy side, you could add more cheese. If you don't like it too cheesy, then you can put it away. This reminds me of, I remember, this was probably 15, 20 years ago. I don't know if they even still make it. There was this product called Cheese Whip. Not sure if they still have it, but my cousin used to go through it all the time. I only ever tried it one time, and from what I recall, this tastes exactly like that. Now, again, it has been 15, 20 years since I tried it, and I only did try it the one time, but it does taste exactly like that. And if you ever had, as a kid, those little cheese snacks where there's the cheese, they have the crackers, and then they have that little red spoon that you can kind of spread over it, this tastes just like that cheese as well. So if you enjoyed those snacks as a kid, this is going to be a great alternative, and it's going to be much healthier because it's all real ingredients, nothing processed about it. All you're using is egg yolks and cheese, that's it. When it comes to the cheese, again, Pecorino Romano, 1 to 2 tablespoons, powdered blue cheese, 1 to 2 tablespoons, 3 egg yolks. For every egg yolk, you're going to do 1 turn on the knob of sea salt. If you don't want to use sea salt, you can use whatever one you want. Me personally, I like sea salt, so that's the one that I'm using. But yeah, that's pretty much how you make this cheese dip right over here. It is my favorite cheese sauce slash steak sauce that I've ever made. But now I'm just gonna go ahead, fire up the grill. I'm gonna go make myself a steak, put the egg whites on the burner, fry those up, add everything together just like last week, and I'm going to really enjoy this meal. That's pretty much it for today's video. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to smash that like button so I know to make more of these recipe videos in the future. And if you're either new to the channel or haven't subscribed yet, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell, as I will be uploading new videos every single day. And if you have any particular recipes that you want me to try out and make for you guys, they could be carnivore recipes, paleo, keto, whatever you guys want. Go ahead, write your suggestions down in the comments section, and if enough people like your particular recipe that you want me to make, then I will pick the one with the most likes and I will try and make that type of recipe. That's it for today's video. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you guys again tomorrow.